Brutally Speaking podcast is proudly sponsored by rockabilia.com. For over 30 years, Rockabilia has been the go-to destination for all things band merch. With over 500,000 items in their online store and collaborations with today's hottest bands, you're sure to find something you love. Use our code BREW10 at checkout and take 10% off your total order. So go pick up your favorite new piece of merch now over at rockabilia.com. And now, on to the show. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Brutally Speaking podcast. I am your host, John. This episode's guest is Myke Terry of Volumes, and more recently from Fire from the Gods. This was supposed to be episode 499, and some things happened. Obviously, there's probably, if you follow Myke, he did another interview, and basically that was set to be the first interview he had done kind of since joining Fire from the Gods. So we kind of had to pivot and change what we did for our release schedule, but now you get to hear the episode I did with Myke. As you heard in the beginning, new things. I decided to kind of switch some stuff up to kind of, change. Once you hit to 500, you kind of want to do some new things and kind of play around with some stuff. And that song you heard in the beginning is a song called Hard Lines. It basically is a demo that my good friend Tom Denney, formerly of A Day to Remember, currently of Sounds Like Color, had done for my other podcast, The Bar. But that show is essentially on hiatus. Everyone basically just got way too busy in their personal lives. Chris is essentially bought a house, is redoing most of the house. Rush ended up getting into a relationship, as you heard at the end of that season 2, and just has been working nonstop and kind of enjoying time with his lady. And I'm still doing this. So it was a thing where I really enjoyed the song, and if I'm being completely honest, it's a thing where when you do a show like this and you put it up on YouTube and stuff, you got to use songs that aren't going to get flagged. And in a great for them situation, Heartsick ended up signing with a small label, and almost every day for the last probably 5 or 6 months, I get at least 1 to 2 copyright strikes about it. And it's a thing where, I love those dudes, and I know people have asked me and even have hit up Alfonso and been like, hey, whose song is this? Or I found out it's your song or whatever, and it's totally awesome, but I'm really tired of dealing with the copyright strikes. And it's just one of those things, like I said, it just feels like it's time for something new and to kind of do some new things. And honestly, this is the guest that I feel like would be the most apropos to do this with. I mean, Myke is someone who kind of comes in and is no stranger to kind of putting his own stamp on things that are kind of established and kind of making them his own. And I think that's just got to be such a hard thing to do, and to balance that and to be malleable, to kind of come in, pay respects to what had the legacy of something that you're joining, while also kind of navigating how to find yourself in it. And as you'll hear in this chat, I thought that was just something Myke was inherently good at. I just figure it's that's the intangible of him, and he must know that. But like most really great people that I've encountered in my life who are just so good at the thing that they do, a lot of them are so humble. And that is the case with Myke. And without further ado, let's get into my conversation with Myke. I'll talk to you on the other side of it.
And there we go. So it feels kind of interesting to finally have you on the show, because I've wanted you on for quite a while. And I was thinking, when I had DM'd you, and you had kind of agreed to do this, I sort of had this revelation that you were sort of the impetus for something I've really been thinking about a lot more internally, and that is the roles that we play, and how they're defined based on different interactions with different people and different social settings and so forth. And a lot of it was because I was listening to some old Bury Your Dead records that you were on, and then I think at the time I was about to do one of these with Michael, and was a thing where, I was kind of thinking about you and how you were in all these different bands. And like, while I know you had been in your own stuff like Cassius and things like that,
Yeah.
You were, excuse me, sort of the epitome of like kind of having to fill and be malleable to be able to fit into a lot of different roles and so forth. So one of the first things I wanted to ask you is that something that you have always, like a skill you've always had, or was that something you had to attain over time?
I feel like it was probably just always in me, really. Just being able just to be flexible and enjoying all aspects of being in a band or being in a project. I think that I've always been drawn to just wanting to know how all of the parts work, and at least being able to be sufficient enough to like get around in that position. So I think it always just kind of just came naturally.
Were there other facets of your life where you can kind of think of where you maybe kind of honed in on that?
Yeah. I'm a chef, so in working in the kitchen, probably you have to be flexible and be able to do, put your hands wherever really is necessary if you want to be good. So I think that probably, and just I think in general, I just always want to, I've never wanted to be locked into doing one thing. I've always wanted to be able to be, good at many things, or at least be knowledgeable about different things, so that just be able to bring more to the table.
I think now that you say that, that just makes so much sense because having spent a lot of time in kitchens myself, it's one of those where sometimes I even think now I kind of wish working in a kitchen was not kind of a young person's game at time, like where the speed and the execution of doing things, because when you kind of know how to do your thing and you can just like work with a well-oiled machine of a team, like, and you can just kind of float and be anywhere and be everywhere. Like, it's just so much fun when you're kind of able just to bullshit during a shift and like the 8 hours seems to go by like nothing.
Yeah, that helps. It makes it go by so fast. If you're like, everyone's locked in, everyone's doing their thing, and it's just moving and moving and moving. It's just like by the time you look up, service is over. It's time to go home.
Absolutely. What are, kind of dipping into that a little bit. I mean, I know for me, working in some instances, being the only white person that was working in some of the kitchens I was in, and listening to just a wide array of music. How much do you think that influenced your wide array of musical influences?
Oh, for sure. I think a lot of the stuff that you find out about life and about living and everything in between by working in the kitchen. So music is for sure a key part in that, because you got all different kinds of people working in under the same roof, and then prep time, everyone's listening to their own thing, or someone's got control of the speakers. So every day someone new has something new, so you get a new playlist, and then obviously they listening to stuff that you never heard of before, and if it's hitting with you, then you're like, yo, what's that? Oh, what's that? Oh, and next thing you know, you're well rounded. You're learning about all different kinds of music. I mean, some of my most favorite bands I learned about by when I was in high school working in a steakhouse and like getting exposed to black metal bands and stuff like that, and like, oh, this is so sick, and I would have never heard of that stuff anywhere else, I don't think, so it was all pretty cool.
I just kind of wondered too, because I know like you grew up out east, and I always have to preface and say, like, I'm from the East Coast, and Delaware is where I'm from, in Dover, and it's not a hotbed for culture, and I understand that.
Yeah.
But back in the day, like, we had people bringing stuff from Philly and Mass and other areas, like cousins and so forth, that were bringing the culture from around us kind of to us, and bringing some kind of different flavors like that.
I mean, Delaware, East Coast. That's.
Well, no, I mean it is.
Yeah,
Right
up, I'm from Virginia, so that's right. That's like right up there.
No, for sure. But that was what I was gonna say. Was like, do you feel like, because I don't recall if you're a little bit older. Like, I'll be 41 in September, so I think we're roughly around the same age.
Yeah.
But like, do you recall how hard it was maybe to find some of these other things when you really had to kind of seek out knowledge in general, like between either being wanting to go more into the culinary route or even musically?
I don't know. I feel like my experience growing up was different because I feel like I was exposed to so much music and so many different kinds of music and cultures and subgenres, like from middle school on up. I mean, it was like alternative music, and then I got to like crazy mathcore, and then emo, and then like metal, and then heavier metal, and then death metal, and then then getting into like the punk rock scene. And then I lived in Richmond, so we were going to house shows, and I was exposed to like crust punk, and I was like 14, 15, and sneaking out and going to shows. So it was like, I don't know. And then like the people that you meet along the way, and then my own want to and drive to be in a band, and then entering into that world and entering into the scene, like it just opened so many doors for me. And so I think that the opportunities to meet and be exposed were never lacking. They were always present.
See, it's weird. I feel like for me, around that same time where I think a lot of kids were kind of finding things, I ended up moving out here to Michigan, and specifically Kalamazoo, which, again, not a very big city at all. And I remember one of the first things as I kind of was finding, quote unquote, my own music and people introducing newer things to me that weren't on like MTV or things like that was ICP. And I was just like, what the fuck is this? Like,
yeah, that was my reaction when I found out. I was like, what the hell is this shit?
And it was just kind of weird because it's like one of my first memories of people showing me something where I felt like, oh, this is really cool and this is something different, was like the first time I heard like the first Aaliyah record and like hearing Boys to Men and things like that. So around that same time to then go to another region in the city or in the country, and then it's like you have horrorcore or whatever you want to call it, which wasn't really widely known at the time, and you're just like, what the fuck is this? Like, is this what Michigan people fuck with? Is this what you're bringing to the table musically? Like, I think I moved to the wrong place.
Yeah. Yeah, that's just seeing that. I remember being like in like middle school probably when I first heard about ICP, and I was like, what? I couldn't understand it. Like it was like rap, but they was wearing clown makeup, but it was kind of cool, but the raps were real weird. It was like, I don't know, it was very and all my friends were really into it. It took me a really, really long time to get to be like, okay, I get it. Okay, this is pretty cool. I can understand it. But yeah, it's very wild.
Well, I just kind of, I think it's interesting to kind of think as I get older and kind of thinking more about like upbringing and how, sort of nature versus nurture has a play on how we end up coming out. That, I hear stories of like people who live back east kind of when shit was really popping off when they were kind of at that age where I was. And it felt almost like I was at a disadvantage because like being literally in the middle of either coast, and the internet not being what it was, the underground would take forever to get to us. It felt like out here. And so I always kind of look back and go like, man, like to hear your story, it's like, I'm so envious that was the culture you got to kind of come up in, because I feel like I was just so close to everything getting ready to happen and having that same experience, but I just didn't get to. And so I always kind of like to talk to people that were around my same age that lived in that same area and just kind of being like, did it seem like it was that like for you, where it's like, man, if it wasn't for me living there in Richmond at that time, I don't know like that I would have gotten into all these things.
Yeah, I don't think I would have. If I didn't live in Richmond at the time that I grew up in and just how alive and well the scene was back then, like, I mean, after I graduated high school, I moved into, my friend had this like warehouse house squat flop place or whatever, and I needed to get out of my house, and I moved into there, but they would have shows in the garage. It was a place called the House of Mosh, and we would have the most insane bands that would come through because Richmond is like if you couldn't get it to the local club, or you weren't big enough or whatever it was, or if you knew someone and you needed a show really fast because your show fell through, you would find your way to the leader of the house. Her name was Beth, and you'd hit Beth up, and she would put you up, and she'd figure out a way to have shows, and then she would take care of everyone. And it's just like that's like kind of what the community was like. I think one of the most memorable shows was My Chemical Romance, Beirut, and Underoath. They played in my garage to like maybe 70 people, and this is like 2003, 2002. So like, and then it just took off from there. So it was like I was like always right place, right time. Like with like meeting, just being around bands and making friends and being in my own little shitty band and like, and just we would open the shows and stuff like that. So it's just like, it just always just worked out somehow. Somehow it just always worked out.
You're someone that I feel like has kind of always known your voice, but I know, like I even went back today and listened to the chat you did with mutual friend Doc Coyle from a couple of years ago. Yeah. And I was kind of surprised to relearn that you, and maybe I'm speaking out of turn, but like that you weren't as comfortable vocally with yourself as I feel like you always were outwardly to like a listener. So how long did it take you to find your voice?
What's today?
I was 2 years old when I found it.
Yeah, man. As I never really wanted to be a singer. Like I was more content. I wanted to be a guitar player. That was my thing. I really wanted to play guitar, and that was my. I mean, at the time when in those bands, I wrote most of the music, and it was just like it was cool because I could like hide behind my instrument and like still be able to perform it. Like, just being, I guess being nervous and shy of yourself when you're just getting started. And then it just happened, like you were saying, having to fill the space and be malleable. I was just like, okay, we need a singer. Well, why don't you just try it out? Oh, you sound good singing. Why don't you just stick with it until we find someone else? All right. Well, it's a little bit uncomfortable, but okay, if we need to do it, the job requires it. We need the spot filled. If I can do it, and if you guys think I sound good enough to carry it on, then I'll do it. And then, and it just keeps going, and it just doesn't stop. And now we're having this conversation.
That's absolutely. It's always wild to me, like listening to a lot of Lead Singer Syndrome podcasts with Shane Told from Silverstein.
Yeah,
it's amazing that your story is pretty much everybody's. That like you would consider to have their own unique style and something that makes them them. Most of it's just by, well, no one else in the band wanted to sing or could remotely carry a tune. So by default, somebody became that singer. So it's wild to me to know that that was sort of your journey to it, is reluctantly becoming a singer.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then.
Yeah, definitely. For me, it was just having to like, just being able to remotely be kind of good at it and being willing to do it just to see that the project moved forward was that was like the main drive at the time. Like just wanted to keep playing shows, just wanted to keep rocking out, just keep wanting to be able to create music and like, just keep playing. That was like, it's always been like a big thing for me, is just to be able to play some shows, play some music.
So I have kind of I've been trying to find my way through this question without it sounding so backhanded complimenty or anything like that. So if it comes across not as nice sounding as I want it to be, I hope that the intent of the question still comes through as well as I want it to. But, I was thinking between like, the time you spent in Bury Your Dead and kind of reshaping their sound, and how, like you have to kind of going back to the first question I had talked about, which is sort of just being malleable and being someone that I think draws people to want to work with you and want you to be a part of their band and so forth. I feel like you are someone who has constantly been tapped to be that person. And so the first question I have is that something you're aware of when you're like, that you have to like either try to find your own way through something, or do you ever really process like, I need to kind of keep my sound something similar to what someone else did before me? Like how do you navigate that? Because I feel like that's such a really hard thing to try to do, is being yourself while also kind of being what the band needs out of you because of what they've known before.
Sure. Man, that's very interesting. Okay, so for me, I think it's how do I say it? I think I never really thought that I had a sound, if that makes any sense. I always just felt like whatever the part needed, whatever I could apply to that track as an accompaniment, is to make it sound good, whatever it needed, whatever serviced the material. So it was never like, oh, this sounds like this, or like so. It's like it's weird when people say, well, I mean, obviously now because you have a bunch of bodies of work, so now that combined that makes the sound. But I never really. It's just what's coming out. You know what I mean? Like I never really been like, oh, I need to sound like this. I mean, if it's heavy, you got to make it sound heavy. If it's like, I mean, obviously you don't want to sound too crazy off from the parameters of if there was a singer before, or you don't want to. I mean, but a lot. I think a lot of it is because of the fact that I can do it, or I can sound good on pretty much anything. That it's like, it's just easy for. It's easy to make it happen. I don't know, and not to like toot my own horn or anything, but I've always felt like it's just whatever. If it needs it, it can come out. It's gonna come out of me, and it's gonna be right. Like I don't know. I've always felt like that.
I just always feel like from my perspective,
that's with what we use. That's with what we use. There have been some things that have put out there that aren't as awesome or aren't that good. I mean, there's been a lot of trash. There's been a lot of trash too, but the stuff that stuck is because it was cool.
Well, I just feel like the thing when I think about trying to put myself into like your position in some of these different situations, either between Bury Your Dead or Volumes and stuff like that, or even if going to pre-Bad Wolves, but what Bad Wolves kind of was working on when they were looking at you initially before choosing Tommy. But it's a thing where like when I would put myself in that situation, I'd be like, well, there's already something that existed before me, so I kind of have to use that sort of as a template moving forward, because doing anything drastically different would just be like, well, what the fuck is that? And that's not what's expected. Like you can't just 180 it so quickly. Like you kind of need to like get there. And I feel like you, in both the situations between Bury Your Dead and Volumes, you did very well of kind of coming in and doing something that I would find to be really hard with something that's already been established. But then over some time, adding your flair, your flavor to it to make it where it's more your thing. And then arguably, I would say like, good luck fucking following you if that's the case.
Sure, yeah. I will say that we kind of did run into that problem with the introduction to the Bury Your Dead thing. I honestly think that we probably should have eased into it more before self-titled. Because there was like, I mean, there's not really a way you could say like, all right, we're going to start singing and it's going to sound like this without just going for it. But I do wish that we had maybe like not as went so many songs had so much melodic singing in there, because we got, I mean, it polarized the band's fan base for sure. And to circle back on being malleable, that was never my idea. I actually was against it. I went into Bury Your Dead thinking we about to, be like, they were like, oh, we heard you could sing a little bit. I was like, where the fuck did you hear that? And so they were like, well, let's just try. Like, I was like, here we go. And because I was like, man, I never in a million years, like, I agreed with everyone else. Like, I didn't think clean singing should go in heavy music, at that time. I mean, in the early 2000s and like that time period, it was just like, it was a very closed-minded time as far as music was concerned. You were either heavy, you were this kind of metal. There was not a lot of genre blending. There was no clean singing. There were no choruses in metal and like any of this stuff. Emo was a completely different thing. There wasn't the My Chemical Romance. That wasn't emo back. Like it was it was way more like black
Yeah.
and white and cut and dry as it is as opposed to right now. So I don't know. Like, I mean, we just started going at it, and I mean, it sounded sick. It was cool, but I think that we should have broken it up a little bit more. But you know, I was in the band. I think I was like 23, 24 when I joined Bury Your Dead, somewhere in there. So, and like all these dudes are humongous motherfuckers. What am I gonna do? Come into this band that's humongous and try to tell them what to do. So it's like it's always bullshit that people will be like, "Oh, Mike Terry changed the band." No, I didn't. That wasn't my choice, motherfucker. It was you talked to the motherfuckers that wrote the music and the dudes that was producing the shit. I was just a motherfucker that they used as a tool to deliver what they wanted to do, and it came out cool, and we rocked the fuck out. And that's how it went down.
Well, I think inversely, like something I find very interesting, and this is kind of where like the question I think comes across kind of negatively, but you know, I'm someone that like I love following, like if there's someone or an artist or a band I love kind of following the side projects and finding what influences do these people bring individually to the collective of something I like. And it's always wild to see sort of the influences coming, like, oh, like when like between like Cassius and then even some of the other stuff you were doing once you had left Bury Your Dead before Volumes, where it's like, you know, kind of going more into that R&B world that you had kind of brought to Bury Your Dead. But it's a thing to me where the thing I always find interesting, and again, trying to put myself into someone else's shoes and thinking about how do you traverse this? How do you go through it? Something I always thought has to be interesting is when you're in something like Bury Your Dead, or like you end up, you know, eventually, and I'm kind of jumping ahead, but like to Volumes, and it's like you join something that's established and you know, your name carries a certain weight when you join these bands. But then is there sort of a struggle when you're kind of trying to do something on your own and it just doesn't fucking pop off the way you think it should because of your association to something else, where people view you so one-dimensionally versus a 3D person that is into so many different things? Is that hard to navigate as well?
At times, yes. But I think that was because I didn't really know what the fuck I was doing. Like, you know, I was floundering around and just doing stuff, figuring out, you know, what I liked and what was fun. But, you know, I'd never really had like a target audience of like, I want to do something like this or like this. It was just like, man, this is, you know, we're just playing this kind of music, or this is how I'm feeling right now, and this is what I want to create. And like, there was no real plan for me. So it was just like, I was just kind of just throwing stuff at the wall, man. Like, you know, after the Bury Your Dead stuff happened, like, you know, I didn't really even know. I swore off playing in heavy bands, man. I kind of was done playing metal, you know. So because my life was at a different space anyways, I was tired of screaming, you know. I now had this, you know, I found out that I could sing, and so like I wanted to do that now. And just I had like a group of people around me at the time that were like, you should do this kind of music. And like we were working on tracks and it was sounding cool, and they were just like, you know, trying to basically just pumping me up and being like, yeah, you can do this on your own. So I don't know, it was just kind of a murky area for me. And like I think it was mostly on me that everything flopped, because I didn't have a direction. I was just doing whatever, and just, you know, I was just going through it at the time. So I was just spiraling and just, you know, just experiencing life and just making music. But, you know, I don't know. It was just a weird time.
It's interesting because like part of this is like like when these things, like podcast didn't exist back then, and social media was barely a thing like it is now. And so, like, you know, people weren't really putting themselves out there like a quote unquote brand like you see people doing now, or I should say most people, but not everybody. So when I think about those things, like to me, you know, there was a great example of something you and Doc had talked about in your guys' chat from a few years ago, like Bad Rabbits. And I fucking love that band. And I had Shield, their drummer, on this a while ago. And, you know, I was like, what happened to you guys? It seemed like your momentum was like climbing, and like you were like working with Chino from Deftones and Teddy Riley and like all these people, and then it just you just kind of went away. Like, what happened? And he was like, and Doc was right. Basically, the producer they were working with kind of went and shopped the songs to Bruno Mars, and like that's where that ended up going.
Yep.
But it's a thing where it's like sometimes like perception isn't reality. So to me, when I look at what you're doing, I'm like, okay, like this is the thing you want to do. And as people get older, they want to experiment and try different things and, become a fuller version of themselves artistically and creatively. And to me, it just was kind of wild that to think about how you could tell that you wanted to be more than just Myke from Bury Your Dead or from a metal band or whatever, but it almost like the industry maybe wasn't letting you be who you authentically wanted to be at that point. So I didn't know if it was more of an industry thing or if it was kind of a you thing or both, but it's kind of interesting to hear that it's kind of an amalgamation of both, really.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely was a lot of both. I mean, for sure. Once people knew that I could sing and that I could perform and, that I was, formidable or whatever, it was a lot of, hey, you should do this. Or maybe you should sound like Kid Cudi, or you should fucking, sound like Howard. You should go try out for Killswitch. And I mean, all kinds of stuff. And then like I had opportunities and I was writing for other people. So I was like, oh, well, I could sound like this or this, that. And it was just a lot of like hot air, a lot of like, when you're young and you are focused, but you just, when you're hungry and, maybe ego or whatever it is, all kinds of stuff involved in that, and just makes you make the crazy decisions. But I think it's a lot of both personal and industry for sure, especially at that level, because everyone was looking to see what I was going to do next, especially after leaving Bury Your Dead,
I mean, I know I was, and I was really excited, getting to see something that I've always loved, which is R&B and hip hop and stuff like that. So to kind of go more that route, I was like, maybe you're going to be that gateway artist for people who only really fucked with metal and be like, well, check out this other thing I do and maybe you'll like it. Maybe I'll turn you on to somebody else, and that was always the nice thing I liked about, you were talking earlier about like, the late 90s, early 2000s of like, there was more segregation of the genres, but at the same time, I feel like there was a lot bigger gaps of like what was considered in that genre. Like, to me, being into hip hop and like indie and stuff like that, like a band like the Roots was really interesting. Getting into more producers in the hip hop scene, like Timbaland working with like Fall Out Boy and like not One Direction, but whatever that band is, I can't think of the name, but like to kind of One Republic, that's it. But to just see kind of like people working with different things like that, that's almost the route I kind of was envisioning you were going to go and had me excited, where I'm like, yo, you're going to kind of bring, some of these other people into something else. And what elements of that are like from Bury Your Dead or whatever, what are you going to bring into this, thing that you're doing? Maybe that's a little abstract and a little different from what everyone else was doing in that space. But maybe I'm, as I've learned from booking shows and stuff and talking to more people behind the scenes, maybe I'm just a very niche kind of a fan that enjoys those kind of things and going on that sonic journey with an artist.
See, yeah, you're the kind of fan, you're the people that the kind of listener that I aspire to reach, is because it's just about taking the journey, man. I mean, sure, it's not going to always be super heavy, and maybe the artist learns a new style and wants to try it out, and maybe it's cool and maybe it's not, but it's just it's the fact of taking the ride, man. That's what it's all about.
Kind of speaking to sort of taking a ride, because I know I got you for a little bit longer, so I definitely want to touch on this because I think it kind of encapsulates a lot of what we've kind of touched on already. But the Fire from the Gods thing, man, like, everyone was really, bummed when AJ, like when the band kind of went on a little bit of a hiatus. They didn't really say much. Then it kind of came back and AJ's dealing with whatever he's dealing with. And then it just kind of seemed like the band was in limbo. And then just magically here comes the show and no one knew who was fronting the band. And here comes you saving the day once again, kind of putting your flair on something. And it's a thing where I remember when the show broke and it was announced that it was you, I was like, that makes so much sense. And like, no one can replace AJ, just like no one can replace anybody that you have have replaced and have tried to replace throughout your career. But I think you, out of all people, know how to do that better than anybody else at this point in your career, because you've done it so many times, all while still maintaining your originality and your flair to it. How did that all come about?
Well, I've been friends with the guys for a really long time. Volumes, we've done some tours with Volumes. Volumes has done some tours with Fire, years ago. So we've always kept in touch and just been in contact with each other. And Richie hit me up and said, we were just talking and, catching up on everything. And he was asking how things were going with Volumes. And, we were talking and we were just like kind of both bands are at a standstill. And he was like, well, we're looking for a new singer. No pressure. Obviously, you're doing your own thing. And they were, would you want to even just check out what we're doing and listen to some of the tracks? And I was like, man, well, I'm pretty bored. We're not doing very much right now. So let's see what's up. So they, sent me some tracks and they were pretty insane. So I went to Houston and we recorded. I went back and forth like two or three different times, and we recorded an EP. And it's pretty sick, and it's going to come out soon, and it's going to blow you away.
And then obviously Volumes, right around that same time, decided to kick up some dust and put out a new single. And based on the email blast I got, it seems like basically Sidewinder is a single, but it seems like there's going to be either an EP or a new full length that would probably be coming soonish by the end of the year, I would assume.
Mm-hmm. Yep. We just we're wrapping on the last vocals. We are finishing that up, and we have a final listen on, I think it's next Wednesday, and then we turn the album in. So we should be turned in by the end of May, and then the powers that be do what they got to do. Blah 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 blah. But yeah, we're looking for a full length coming out pretty soon, at least before the end of the year. And it's really exciting because now I'm busy. So it's like now we're doing stuff. Now it's like I'm back to doing what I want to be doing. So work is good. Fire's got a new EP coming out this year. We're releasing a new single pretty soon. I can't say within the next little bit of time. And then, we're hitting the road, start touring, and then we come home, Volumes gets busy, so it's just so back to work, man.
Well, I was going to say, talking with Matty Mullins, who's fronting both Memphis Mayfire and doing Amber Lynn tours and so forth, something I'd kind of asked him is does it feel overwhelming to kind of look at your calendar? Because everyone probably knows at this point, nothing in the music industry is done just on a drop of a dime. It's well thought out. It's even down to, hey, let's put this out at this time because then a tour can link up to it, to all these other things. Mm-hmm. Is it overwhelming potentially looking at your calendar and being like, oh man, I am going to be busy as fuck for the next year and a half, between these two things, potentially no time at home and stuff like that? Or does that excite you?
I get stoked. I like it. It is sad to be away from home, but and it's good to be busy, and I thrive in that environment. I really enjoy performing, and I really enjoy to connect with people. And when I see the calendar filling up, I get stoked because it means it's more opportunities to connect and more opportunities to express myself and just have a good time. That's what it's all about.
Knowing that you are someone that likes to stay busy and seemingly is just constantly writing and working with people, is there something else, whether it be a solo album or something, is there something else you are currently working on that you're also excited about that is a little bit something maybe different from either of these two bands that you're currently fronting?
I've really gotten into writing with artists and doing that kind of stuff. So there, not even to be a part of it, just to write and help and make the music happen, and just getting back into that. And that's been a lot of fun. Doing a lot of different features with different projects. And yeah, I just like to write and create, man, and just be present and just be in that environment. I feel like it's a good space to be in. You know, and I don't know, I feel like that's where I enjoy feeling the most. And so I just want to be around that all the time. So at any way possible, let's do it.
I have kind of a weird last question for you. You know, something and this is 100% a projection of my own feelings and so forth. But I am someone who likes closure and likes there to be finality in something in my own life, whether it be relationships or whatever. You know, kind of thinking, I saw somewhat recently that Very Dead's doing a quote unquote like a farewell show soonish. And it kind of got me thinking, if I were in your position, like I know you've probably have had your closure already, but with like you had done the reunion shows a little while ago, and now the band's kind of coming back in a different iteration without you. Do you still have the closure maybe that I would assume one would want for a chapter of their career, especially something that kind of brought you to the beginning of your career as most people would know it? Or is there a little sense of sadness that you're not a part of it?
I mean,
and maybe you are a part of it, and I don't want to ruin a surprise.
I don't, you know, I think that regardless of what happens, it was an awesome ride. Like, that was the sickest shit of my fucking life, dog. Being in that band and being a part of that, that's enough. Like, you know, like you said, we've done the shows, and like, even when before doing those shows, it was like, you just have to, like, for me, the closure was just looking back and being like, man, I did some crazy stuff, man. And like, I was in one of the biggest bands at that time and done, you know, I feel cool about it. So if I'm in it, cool. If I'm not, cool. There's like 20 or 30 other motherfuckers that could have been in the band that were in the band that are all part of that story, you know, like, you know. So it's like, if it happens, cool. If it doesn't happen, it's still cool. And it's all love between me and the guys. Like, you know, I got it out of my system. So it's like, I mean, to play some more shows, cool. If it happens, if it didn't happen, I mean, I've done it all. We've done it. It could be no better than it was. Like, the places that I've gone with that band, and the things that we've seen, nothing could ever top what one final show would top all of that. So it doesn't matter to me.
That's a more mature approach to it than potentially than I have. But like I said, I went through something recently with some friends and stuff, and I realized I was projecting my own thing onto it, and that like I need those things because I like there to be a definitive, like, this is the end, and I know it's the end. And I think a lot of it is because life has thrown me a lot of endings that weren't really endings. They were endings in the sense that something came to an end, but I had no say in it. I didn't get to have that ending I wanted. And so when I think of something like that, like, it just makes me wonder, like, does everyone else kind of go through that same thing, or is it, like I said, a projection that I'm putting onto an experience that years?
No, I feel like you're not wrong, man. I do feel that same way. I feel like that sometimes because I have been been dealt a lot of shitty endings, of course, you know, that weren't really endings. So like, I think what with this is like the first, like, because it was such a humongous thing that it's like, I'm purposely not gonna do that and like set myself back for what, you know. I don't know. It's very easy to be upset. Because it's like, you know, if it did, you know, without those two albums, what the fuck would the band be? You know, like, let's face it, man. Whether you like me or not, I kept that band going, right? And the numbers are there to prove it that it was actually pretty fucking cool. So it's like, yeah, you could say, you could be upset about it, but it's like, for what? What is that going to get me? Like, and it's just like, it's just not worth the energy to like be negative about it. Like, especially because you still love the guys. It's like, it's whatever. It's just like, let it be what it is and just fuck it, man. Like, let's go bowling.
Like I said, that is a way more mature approach to it than I think I would have had.
Yeah, I mean, I think because I did have the opportunity before when I got kicked out, and they were like, the band broke up and then they got back together with Matt, and like I kind of crashed out, and like I don't want to do that again. So it's just it's just I don't know, I just got to think about it differently. Because now it's too important. I'm old, man. So what do I look like crashing out, going crazy?
Well, I was gonna say that is the thing that as I've gotten older myself, that I keep coming back to. Is just like sometimes the old me wants to come out, and I'm like, man, why do that? You already know you already know where that's gonna take you. It ain't fucking worth it.
Yeah, we already know where this is gonna go.
Yeah,
man, it ain't worth it. Old me,
it ain't worth it. So, to kind of wrap everything up, where is there anything you would like to plug online or anything you want people to check out? I know obviously you said new music coming soonish, but anything in the meantime you want people to check
out? Continue to listen to Sidewinder for volumes, please. That is very awesome. Thank you guys so much. The response has been incredible. Fire from the Gods is going to be putting out new music. I think I can say this in June. So next month, next month. And we'll be on the road. That's pretty much it. This has been a great experience, man. I appreciate it. I thank you for taking the time to talk to me.
Absolutely. You're someone I've been after for a while, and I just stopped being a bitch and just fucking DM'd you. Because I tried making it happen through the proper channels for a long time, and this year I have, leading up to, because you will be the episode before episode 500. Basically, this year leading up to it, I had just been of the mindset like, fucking, I'm going back to the DIY roots, and I'm just gonna bother people and be ignorant in the DMs and just shoot my shot and try to make shit happen on my own versus waiting
where I'm
for
at
permission.
Too, man, with everything. Yeah, man, fuck it, dude. Everything at this point, man, you just gotta take it, bro. We gotta go after it, man. Like, I'm annoying. I'm in the DMs. I'm like, I don't care, man. Like, I'll, figure out a way to get some. Like, hey, what's up, man? How can we get to work? Let's figure out a way to do something, man. Like, not doing it and not working has got me. It's pretty far, but with a little bit of actual effort, maybe we could actually do something cool. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. I'll be 42 in July, so it's like I gotta keep it moving, man.
Well, happy early birthday, and hopefully, I'm looking at the tour dates for your Fever run, and sadly, those are out west. So I definitely won't be seeing any of those, but hopefully, either Fire from the Gods or some volume shows or something brings you out to Michigan, and we can try to link up and maybe have a smoke or something.
Let's do it, man, for sure. Yeah, you guys have great weed out there, man.
I think we do.
Definitely. Every time I love there, it's like,
all gas, no brakes, man.
Yeah, seriously, straight up, man. It's crazy. But yeah, we should be out there in the fall. Fire will be doing a lot of touring this fall, and then I think that volume starts in between that and then the winter time. So the rest of the year will be stacked for me. So you'll see me one way or the other. I'll be on the loose all year.
Absolutely, I'll shoot you a DM and we'll try to link up.
Cool, man. Please do, man.
Enjoy the rest of your day, man. Have a good weekend. Thank you so much again for doing this.
My God, thank you so much, bro. I'll talk to you soon.
So that was my conversation with Myke. Want to thank him once again for taking the time and coming on the show, and honestly, for kind of delving into some of my own weird questions about his life and his career. And when I think back to the Bury Your Dead thing and how he joined the band and then kind of put his stamp on taking the band to the next level, and some of the biggest tours that they had ever done were with Myke in it. And now the band's reuniting and kind of doing these farewell shows, and it's a thing where I kind of go back to like the episode I did with Keller Harbin, formerly of The Chariot, where at the time, like, The Chariot had already, played their farewell shows and stuff like that. And it's like, you were a part of the beginning of that. You are part of its legacy as a whole, but you put your time in. And to see something that you were a part of it and was a pretty big part of your life, especially at such a young age, like, how do you navigate that? How do you get the closure that I feel like I would want, where it's like, hey man, like, I know that there was a band before me and I'm not the original guy, but you know what? Like, I put in the time. I put in a lot of work, sacrificed a lot, and motherfucker, I should be a part of this too. Like, and I know I already had my closure initially, but if you're bringing something back, then I feel like I need to kind of be involved in it in some way, shape, or form. And maybe that's selfish of me to look at it through that lens, but I just feel like if I was a part of something and I just went through all of the sacrifices that people in the touring industry do, man, you bet your ass I would want to be there. I would want to be a part of it, even if it's for one fucking song. Like, I'd want to put it to rest officially with everybody else and be like, we're all done. It's buried. Now we can all move on. And I know that's easier said than done. And as of when I'm recording this right now, because I am trying to really give myself a lot of time off, I don't know if that has changed. I don't know if the band will inevitably ask Myke to come and join them for this farewell shows. I don't know. I would kind of hope so, because to me, and this is just my opinion, it sounded like, even though Myke said that he was fine with how everything is and how it stands currently with his ending with the band, I still felt like I got a little sense of like he was a little hurt that he, as of then and as of when I'm recording this now, has not been asked to be a part of that. And I can't blame him if that's how he feels. And so it's a thing where I'm very interested to see what's going on with this. And speaking of, I'm really interested to see what happens with the new Volumes thing. Apparently Myke did a DJ set and was playing snippets of the new album. Obviously the new album is done. The manager of Myke's who set this up just kept texting me, the album's done, I can't send you anything, but just know it's wild as fuck. Everyone just really goes above and beyond and kills it. So I haven't even heard a fucking thing, and I am stupidly excited to hear this. So let's see when some new Volumes drops, and fire from the gods, man. Like, shit, we should be getting a new song. I was told of a date when a new song should drop, but in light of things changing, I don't know if when I post this that'll be done. So if a new Fire from the Gods song is out, I hope you're jamming it. I hope it's as good as I assume it's going to be. If it's not, well, just know that some stuff is coming. And either way, I am so excited to see Myke being able to be very busy, very active, just creating and just getting to be the person I think he is meant to be, which is an entertainer, a performer, someone who just gets to express himself in a multitude of different ways. So I am so thankful that Myke got to do this episode. I would love to have him back on and just kind of shoot the shit a little bit more, go a little bit deeper on some stuff that we kind of started touching on at the end. But that's a different time. And for now, I'll just settle with what I got, just gratitude. So to start wrapping up this episode, if you would like to keep up with Volumes, you can find them at volumesofficial.com. Otherwise, you can go on Facebook at Volumes Band, Instagram at Volumes LA, and Twitter at Volumes Band as well. If you'd like to keep up with Myke, you can find him at Myke Terrible. I think that is one of the most clever names because I love a good pun, so I think that's a great name. It's MykeTerryble if you didn't know how to spell that. And if you'd like to keep up Fire from the Gods, firefromthegods.com, Fire from the Gods on both Facebook and Instagram. There was a Twitter, but that looked like it just really belonged to AJ more so than the band. I don't know if they're going to have some new socials for that or not, but either way, follow those. If you'd like to keep up with the podcast, simply enough, Brew Speak Pod on all your social media platforms of choice. Email me at brutallyspeaking@gmail.com. Rate, review, subscribe. You know why that is important. Please do it where you can. And please support our sponsor at rockabilia.com. Use our code BREWtally at checkout. Take 10% off your total purchase order. Support them for supporting the show and for the Brutally Speaking podcast. I am your host, John, and I will see you all next week where I have Nathan James. That was a really interesting conversation, and excited to get that one out to you. So I will see you all next week. Enjoy the rest of yours.